My name is Evelyn Carrington, and on March 17, 2019, my life changed forever. At the time, I was living in Portland with my husband, Marcus, and our 2 children, our son, Caleb, and our newborn daughter, Isla. I worked as a financial analyst, and most of my time was spent balancing work, home life, and the constant demands of motherhood. Life felt predictable, exhausting at times, but stable. Yet in the weeks leading up to that night, I couldn't shake this strange sense of unease. It wasn't overwhelming, but it lingered, this quiet feeling that something was coming. I chalked it up to stress, telling myself I was just tired from sleepless nights and the chaos that comes with caring for a newborn. Looking back, I know now that feeling was something more, something I should have paid attention to. That evening felt no different from any other. I was in Isla's room, rocking her gently in my arms while she nursed. The room was dim, and everything felt calm, peaceful, even. I remember feeling grateful in that moment, like I could finally catch my breath. But then, out of nowhere, a sharp pain exploded in my stomach, like a hot knife cutting through me. The pain spread quickly, shooting through my chest and down my arms. My breathing turned shallow, and when I looked down, I froze. Blood, a lot of it. My heart raced, and panic overtook me as I screamed for Marcus, my voice thin and desperate. Within seconds, he was there. His face turned pale the moment he saw me, and without a word, he scooped Isla from my arms and placed her safely in her crib before calling 911. The next few minutes felt like a blur. Paramedics arrived quickly, but by then, I was barely aware of what was happening. My body felt weak, and the sounds around me, the voices, the sirens, all seemed distant, like I was hearing them from underwater. Marcus was holding my hand, but even his touch felt like it was slipping away. My vision dimmed, and I felt myself fading. Deep down, I knew I was dying. But then, suddenly, the pain was gone. In its place was this incredible feeling of peace, a calm so powerful that I forgot all about the ambulance, the bleeding, and even my own body. I felt weightless, like I was floating, and when I opened my eyes, I realized I wasn't in the ambulance anymore. Instead, I was in a vast, open space, endless and warm, surrounded by a golden light that seemed to hum with life itself. Standing before me were 3 radiant figures, glowing so brightly I couldn't make out their faces. They didn't speak, yet somehow I understood them perfectly, as if their thoughts flowed directly into my mind. One of them stepped closer, and although he never touched me, I felt this overwhelming warmth spread through my entire being, a warmth that seemed to erase all my fear and doubt. "It's time to choose," the figure said, his voice clear and gentle inside my mind. "Would you like to come with us, or stay?" I remember feeling frozen, not out of fear, but because I didn't know what to do. The warmth that surrounded me felt so peaceful, so perfect, that part of me wanted to stay right there. In that place, nothing seemed to matter anymore, not the pain, not the fear, not even my own body. But then, faces began flashing through my mind. I saw Marcus holding Isla in the hospital room, tears in his eyes as he cradled her in his arms. I saw Caleb running through our backyard, laughing as he chased Bubbles across the lawn. I saw the life I had built, the people I loved, and I realized I wasn't ready to let go. The figure closest to me seemed to know what I was thinking. Without saying a word, he reached out his hand, and suddenly I was no longer in that peaceful light. Instead, I was standing in what looked like the real world, but something was horribly wrong. I saw cities underwater, storms tearing through neighborhoods, and people running in fear. There was fire, destruction, and heartbreak everywhere I looked. But just when I thought I couldn't watch anymore, the images shifted. I saw people helping each other, strangers embracing, families working together to rebuild. There was still pain, but there was also love, a powerful, undeniable love that seemed to grow stronger even in the darkest moments. I turned to the figure again, confused. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked, though I never actually spoke the words. His response came as a calm, steady thought. "Because the world is changing," he said. "And you have a role to play." Before I could respond, I felt myself being pulled away, back to my body, back to reality. The warmth of that peaceful place began to fade, and I felt the cold air of the hospital room hit my skin. I opened my eyes to see Marcus leaning over me, tears running down his face as he whispered, "You're okay, you're okay." I wanted to tell him everything, what I'd seen, what I'd felt, but I could barely find the strength to squeeze his hand. All I knew was that I had been given a choice, and I had chosen to stay. The days that followed were difficult. My body was weak, and even simple tasks felt exhausting. The doctors told me I had suffered a severe postpartum hemorrhage and had lost a dangerous amount of blood. They kept saying I was lucky to be alive, but I knew luck had nothing to do with it. I couldn't stop thinking about what I had seen, the peace I felt in that other place, the terrifying visions of destruction, and the overwhelming sense of hope that followed. It all felt so real, more vivid than any dream or hallucination could ever be. I knew deep down that I hadn't just imagined it, I had experienced something far greater than anything I could explain. For a while, I kept it to myself. I didn't know how to put it into words, and honestly, I was afraid no one would believe me. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I had been sent back for a reason. The words that figure spoke to me, "You have a role to play," echoed in my mind constantly. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew I couldn't ignore it. Eventually, I opened up to Marcus one night while we were sitting on the couch. I told him everything, the light, the figures, the visions of the future. He listened quietly, his face serious but calm. When I finished, he didn't laugh or call me crazy. Instead, he just took my hand and said, "Whatever this is, whatever you're meant to do, we'll figure it out together." Since that day, I've tried to live my life differently. I still don't know exactly what my purpose is, but I know that the world is changing, and I believe we're being called to be better. To love more, to care more, to stand together when things get hard. The chaos I saw may be frightening, but I know there's hope, and that hope starts with us. I was given a second chance, and I refused to waste it. In the months that followed, I couldn't forget what I had seen. Every time I watched the news or scrolled through social media, I felt like I was witnessing the early signs of what that figure had shown me. Natural disasters seemed to be happening more often, floods, wildfires, and earthquakes destroying homes and lives. Political tensions were rising, and people seemed more divided than ever. Each time I saw these things unfold, that overwhelming feeling of urgency returned, like I had been warned for a reason. I didn't know what I was supposed to do, but I knew I couldn't just sit back and ignore it. I started small. At first, I focused on being more present, more intentional with the people around me. I reached out to old friends I had lost touch with, offered help to neighbors when they needed it, and made an effort to show kindness wherever I could. It wasn't much, but somehow it felt important, like even the smallest gestures were part of something bigger. I found myself talking more openly about faith too, something I had kept quiet about before. I realized that the hope I had seen, that powerful love that shone through the chaos, wasn't just something I had imagined. It was real, and I believed it was God's way of reminding me that no matter how dark things might get, His presence would always shine through. I still don't know exactly why I was given that experience, but I believe with all my heart that we're being called to wake up. The world is changing, and I believe God is asking us to choose love, compassion, and faith now more than ever. I was shown that even in the hardest times, there's hope, but it's up to us to be part of that hope. If you're hearing this today, I believe you're meant to hear it for a reason. We all have a role to play in what's coming, and it starts with the choices we make right now. As time went on, that sense of purpose only grew stronger. I couldn't forget the images of destruction I had seen, the floods, the fires, the fear, but I also couldn't forget the moments of kindness and strength that followed. It became clear to me that no matter how dark things might get, there would always be light, and that light comes from us. Every act of compassion, every moment of forgiveness, and every choice to love instead of hate brings us closer to the hope I was shown. I've realized now that God doesn't always ask us to change the entire world overnight. Sometimes, He just asks us to change the world for one person, to be the light in someone's darkest moment. That's what I've tried to do since that night. Whether it's offering comfort to someone who's struggling, encouraging someone who's lost hope, or simply choosing patience when I feel frustrated, I believe every small act makes a difference. I know I was brought back for a reason, and I believe that reason is to share this message. No matter what lies ahead, love will always shine brighter than fear. If you're watching this, I want you to know that you're here for a reason too. God has a purpose for you, even if you don't know what it is yet. We don't have to understand everything right now, we just have to be willing to listen, to trust, and to love. Whatever storms may come, we can face them together, with faith, with courage, and with the hope that God's light will always break through the darkness. Please, don't ignore that call. Choose love today, because I believe that's what will change the world. Since that experience, my life hasn't been the same. There are still hard days, moments when fear creeps in or when I feel overwhelmed by the uncertainty of what's to come. But in those moments, I remind myself of what I felt in that peaceful place, that overwhelming sense of love and calm that washed away every worry and fear. I know now that God's presence is constant, even when we can't see it clearly. That peace I felt wasn't just for me, it's available to all of us if we're willing to open our hearts and trust Him. I don't share my story to scare anyone, I share it because I believe we still have time. The visions I was shown weren't just about destruction, they were a warning, yes, but they were also a reminder that hope is never lost. No matter how dark things may get, there will always be people who choose love, kindness, and compassion. And I believe that's exactly what God is calling us to do, to stand firm in our faith and be that light in the world. If my story has touched you in any way, I encourage you to take that feeling and let it guide you. Reach out to someone who's hurting, forgive someone you've been holding bitterness toward, or simply pray for guidance in your own life. I believe that every small act of love ripples farther than we can imagine, and together, those ripples can become something powerful. God's love is stronger than any storm, and with Him, we are never alone. If you believe this message is important, please share it with others. The world is changing, and I believe now more than ever, we need to be ready, not with fear, but with faith. Since that day, I've realized that sharing this message is part of what I was sent back to do. I know that some people may doubt what I experienced, they may call it a dream or a hallucination, but I know in my heart that what I saw was real. The peace I felt in that place, the overwhelming love, and the visions of both chaos and hope were far too vivid to ignore. I believe God allowed me to see those things so I could warn others, not to frighten them, but to help prepare them. The truth is, we can't stop the challenges that are coming, but we can decide how we'll respond when they do. I believe that's why I was told I had a role to play. My role isn't to predict disasters or claim to know exactly what's ahead, it's to remind people that even in the darkest times, there's hope. God's presence is with us, and no matter how broken the world may seem, His love will never fail. But it's up to us to embrace that love, to choose compassion, to forgive, and to trust Him with our lives. The kindness we show today might be what helps someone else find strength tomorrow. The love we give today may be what carries someone through their hardest moment. If you're listening right now, I truly believe it's for a reason. God is calling each of us to step forward in faith, to be a light when the world feels dark. Please don't ignore that call. Ask yourself, How can I be a source of love and hope today? Because I believe that's how we prepare, by trusting God, choosing love, and standing together. If this message spoke to you, I ask that you share it with someone who needs to hear it. We may not be able to stop what's coming, but if we face it with love and faith, I believe we'll be stronger than we ever imagined. Even now, there are moments when I sit quietly and think back to that place, the warmth, the calm, the feeling of being completely at peace. Sometimes I find myself longing for it, especially when life feels overwhelming. But then I remember what I saw, the faces of the people I love, the moments of hope shining through the chaos, and I know that coming back was the right choice. God didn't bring me back just to survive, He brought me back to share this message, to remind people that no matter how dark things may seem, His light will always shine brighter. I know the world feels heavy right now. So many people are hurting, and it's easy to feel powerless in the face of it all. But I believe that's exactly why God is calling us to act, to choose love in a world that's desperate for it. Maybe that means reaching out to a neighbor, or showing patience to someone who's struggling. Maybe it's forgiving someone you've been angry with, or simply reminding your family how much they mean to you. These small choices may not seem like much, but they matter, and they add up. The love we show today can create ripples that reach farther than we'll ever know. So if you're still listening, I believe it's for a reason. I believe God wants you to know that you have a role to play too, no matter who you are, no matter what you've been through. Don't wait for tomorrow to start. Choose love today. Choose faith today. And most importantly, choose to trust that no matter what happens, God is still in control. If this message spoke to you, please share it with someone you care about. We're not meant to face what's coming alone, but together, with love and faith, I believe we can overcome anything. Since that day, I've learned that faith isn't about having all the answers, it's about trusting God even when you don't. There are still moments when I wonder why this happened to me, why I was shown what I was, and why I was given the chance to return. But each time I ask those questions, I'm reminded of the one thing I know for sure: I was sent back for a reason. I wasn't shown those visions just to sit quietly and forget them, I was shown them to speak out, to encourage others, and to remind people that hope is never lost. I believe with all my heart that the world is moving toward a time of change, and that change won't be easy. But I also believe that God is giving us time to prepare. Not to prepare with fear or panic, but with love, compassion, and faith. The kindness you show today, the forgiveness you offer, the effort you make to care for others, those are the things that will matter most. Those are the moments that will light the way when things feel darkest. So please, don't let this message stop here. Take it with you. Share it with your family, your friends, and anyone who may be feeling hopeless or afraid. I truly believe God is calling us to be His light in the world, to stand strong, to love fiercely, and to trust that no matter what's ahead, He will guide us through it. The future may be uncertain, but God's love never is, and if we hold on to that truth, I know we'll be ready for whatever comes next.